swapped for a night. Everyone laughed. It was ridiculous, something out of a late-night movie. But then I caught the way my husband looked at me across the table, and I knew he was thinking about it. And the truth is, so was I. Don't get me wrong, our marriage wasn't falling apart. We were fine, comfortable even, but maybe that was part of the problem. We'd become so used to each other, so set in our rhythm, that the spark, the unpredictable, electric part had quietly slipped away. The late-night whispers, the stolen glances, the spontaneous touches that once made my heart race, they had all been swallowed up by bills, errands, and takeout eaten in silence while scrolling through our phones. We still loved each other, but the edge had dulled. So when our best friends, also a married couple, half-jokingly played along with the idea, something shifted. Not dramatically, not all at once, but something in the air changed that night. It didn't happen immediately. There was no rush, no recklessness, just weeks of nervous conversation, setting boundaries, making rules, backtracking, then revisiting. In the end, we all said yes. One night, no expectations, just an experience. I'll never forget how I felt walking into that hotel room. My heart was thudding, hands cold, nervous, excited, terrified, but also more alive than I'd felt in a very long time. He was already there, Micah, our friend, someone I trusted, someone who'd known me for years. It wasn't awkward like I feared it might be. He wasn't trying to impress me or charm me into anything. It was quiet, honest. We talked for hours before anything happened. Just talked. And somewhere in those conversations, I realized how much I missed being truly seen. Not just glanced at in passing, seen as a woman. Not a wife. Not a mom. Not a supporting character in someone else's day. That night wasn't about breaking vows. It wasn't about lust or fantasy. It was about remembering myself. Being touched like it mattered. Spoken to like I was a mystery, not a habit. Kissed like I wasn't already expected. And it made me wonder, what had we lost along the way? Had our marriage just buried that version of me? Or had she always been waiting, quietly, for a reason to come alive again? But here's the twist. No one saw coming. I can't stop thinking about it. Not just about him, but about how I felt. And the strangest part? My husband can't either. Ever since that night, something shifted between us. And not in a bad way, in a real way. A strange electric undercurrent has returned. Now I'm caught between two truths. That night changed me, and I want it again. But can you open one door like that without slamming another shut behind you? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because what comes next could change everything. After that night, nothing looked the same. Not my kitchen, not my bed, not even the face of the man I'd been married to for 10 years. Everything was familiar, but sharper somehow. Like I cleaned the windows and didn't realize how dirty they were before. We didn't talk about it right away. The next morning, we acted like we always did. We brewed coffee, joked about the parking at the hotel, tried to slip back into our regular rhythm. But under all that small talk, there was a silency await we were both carrying. Neither of us said it out loud, but it was there, and we both knew it. I caught him watching me more than usual. His eyes lingered when I walked past, like he was studying something unfamiliar. He reached for my hand at dinner, gently, like he hadn't done in years. There was a silence between us, not the cold kind, but the kind that buzzed, like static in the air before a thunderstorm. Something unspoken sat there between our plates, just breathing with us. And I wondered, did he feel it too? Not guilt, exactly. More like awareness, awakening. Like we'd stepped through a doorway, and even though we could walk back, something inside us had already crossed. A few days later, I found myself sitting in the shower longer than I needed to, letting the water wash over me, letting the steam fill the room while I replayed every second of that night. Not just what happened, but how I felt. How he looked at Minot like a wife. Not like someone familiar, but like someone still wrapped in mystery. Like everything I said was worth listening to. Like I had gravity again. And that feeling doesn't just go away. You crave it. You try to convince yourself it's a fluke, just a moment. But then the questions creep in. When did I start feeling invisible? When did we stop actually listening to each other? Eventually, my husband and I talked, sort of. He sat on the edge of the bed one night, rubbed the back of his neck like he was trying to massage the words loose. Then he just said it. So, that night, I keep thinking about it. No judgment, no hesitation, just truth. And I knew in that moment that was exactly where I was. Emotionally stirred, mentally scrambled, but not ready to pretend it never happened. We didn't regret it, but we didn't know what to do with it either. Then came the question, the one we didn't want to say out loud. Would you do it again? He didn't ask it right away, and neither did I. But it hung there. I didn't answer. Not then. Because deep down, I already knew my answer, and saying it would make it real. Would that mean something was wrong with us? Or would it mean something was finally waking up between us? What if that night wasn't a one-time thing? What if it wasn't the end of something but the beginning? A week passed, but the weight of that night didn't. If anything, it grew heavier, sliding its way into our silences, our touches, our glances. We went through the motions of life like normal, but something in the way he touched my waist in the kitchen, how our eyes met and held longer than before, told me we were both still in it, still circling back to that moment. But the real shift happened one evening after a quiet dinner. We were sitting in the living room, low lights, wine half finished. He looked at me, swirling his glass without meeting my eyes. "You seem different after that night," he said. His voice was even, but there was a question under it. Not jealousy, maybe fear or curiosity. I didn't know how to explain what changed, that it wasn't about the other person. It was about what that night unlocked in me, a version of myself I hadn't touched in years. We finally admitted it to each other and ourselves. We wanted to do it again. Same people, same space, no pressure, no rules this time. Just see what it meant, what it revealed. But then we paused. What would that make us? Were we rewriting the rules or breaking them piece by piece? The conflict wasn't just about desire. It was about identity. I started asking myself things I'd avoided for years. Was I still the woman I used to be? Or had I been wearing a role for so long? Wife, mother, scheduler of appointments, cleaner of dishes, that I forgot the part of me that once felt fearless, curious, fully alive? That night, I had a long conversation with my best friend, his wife. She brought it up first, said it hadn't left her mind either. Said she was surprised at how natural it felt, and even more surprised that she and her husband hadn't argued about it afterward. "We're more honest now," she said, her voice quiet, but also more unsure. That's when I realized this wasn't just a ripple from a one-night choice. It was a deeper current pulling us in ways none of us had planned for. Something had shifted beneath the surface, not just for me and my husband, but for everyone in that small circle who had agreed, even casually, to play along. We'd crossed into uncharted territory, and now every couple was handling the fallout in their own way. Some were leaning into the idea, testing boundaries, curious. Others were pulling back, scared of what they'd awakened. And then there were people like us, stuck in between, still trying to figure out what this even was. That's when I started noticing things, small things, subtle shifts in energy. My best friend's husband, he looked at me differently after that night. Not like he was flirting, but with a softness, a kind of emotional attentiveness that hadn't been there before. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel it too. It wasn't sexual, it was connective. Like we had seen a part of each other that no one else had. Something unspoken passed between us in brief glances, little pauses, quiet smiles. Now I lie awake more often than I used to, staring at the ceiling, wondering, what did we really open? And more importantly, where is it going to take us? The night everything nearly came undone didn't start with fireworks. It started like any other evening, leftover pasta, half-hearted small talk about work and weather. But I felt it. Like static in the air before a storm. Something was building. like exploration. It felt like confrontation. The drive over was quiet. My husband's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. My stomach flipped every few minutes. I stared out the window, heart hammering, asking myself for the 100th time, why am I doing this again? Is this still about connection? Or am I just looking for a way out of something I can't name? When we stepped into the suite, I could feel it. The air was thick. Everyone smiled, but it was tight, forced, like actors in a play they no longer wanted to be in. We opened a bottle of wine, passed it around, made jokes, but underneath it all, the ground had shifted. Familiarity now came with friction. I could feel it in the way my friend sat closer to her husband than before, in the way mine watched Menno with jealousy, but with this intense, searching gaze. Like he didn't recognize me. Or maybe he did, and that was the part that scared him. And then, the thing that cracked it all open. My friend's husband put down his glass and asked, "Are we sure we're still doing this for the same reasons?" No one moved. My friend blinked at him, then looked at me. My husband leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, jaw tight. No one had said it out loud before, not like that. Not with the possibility that maybe this wasn't about fun anymore. Maybe we had let it become something else, something deeper, messier. My chest tightened, because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. The more we tried to explore, the more I felt like we were slipping out of sync. And for the first time, I wondered, had we tried to feel closer, only to break something instead? Silence stretched long and painful. No one wanted to be the first to answer. And just when it felt like the tension might suffocate us, my husband stood up. No rush, no drama, just deliberate movement, like he'd made peace with what he was about to say. He walked to the window, looked out over the city lights, and then turned back. His voice was low, steady. "I think I've developed feelings," he said, "and I don't know what to do with that." My heart dropped. I looked at him, then over at my friend. His gaze flicked between us, unsteady, like he wasn't sure where to land. Her mouth parted slightly, maybe to speak, maybe just to breathe, but no words came out. Everything stilled. The hotel suite, the city outside, even the buzzing in my head. The only sound was the low hum of the air conditioner. I didn't need to ask who my husband meant. I already knew. He wasn't saying it to punish me or create drama. The look in his eyes told me he hated that he even felt it. But it was true. And truth, when spoken aloud like that, doesn't leave much standing. His words split the room open. There was a heat in my chest, not from anger, not even jealousy, just a raw, electric clarity. We thought we were safe. That if we made enough rules, enough agreements, enough caveats, we could explore without consequences. But feelings don't care about boundaries. They don't respect contracts. And what we had set in motion wasn't playful anymore. It wasn't about rekindling the spark or shaking things up. It was something else entirely, something real. Then my best friend stood up, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "You're not the only one," she said. Her husband looked like the air had been knocked out of him, and me just sat there, completely still, my hands in my lap, my pulse thudding in my ears. The room was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was full of truth, confusion, and the kind of emotions that don't fit neatly into categories. This wasn't about infidelity. It wasn't about betrayal. It wasn't even about the sex. It was about connection, the kind that sneaks up on you, wraps around you slowly, and asks for more than you meant to give. And then I realized something I hadn't let myself feel until that exact moment. I wasn't sure I wanted it to stop. Not because I wanted someone else more than my husband, but because this mess, this tangled, terrifying chaos, made me feel something. I felt seen, desired. Like my life wasn't just happening to me, it was moving through me again. But now we weren't just flirting with the edge. We were hanging off of it. This wasn't just about our feelings anymore. This was about our homes, our vows, our trust, our friendship. The real question wasn't, would we do this again? It was, what are we now? What are we to each other when the old lines don't apply and the new ones haven't been drawn yet? We sat in that question, All four of us, saying nothing, staring at each other, staring at the floor, waiting for someone to blink first. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff in complete silence, hearts pounding, lungs holding breath. No one knew how far the drop was. Then, finally, my husband turned from the window. He looked at Minot angry, not lost, just exhausted. "I don't want to lose you," he said, "but I don't think we can go back to who we were." And that, somehow, was the hardest truth of the night, because I felt it too. Whatever we'd been comfortable, safe, functional at wasn't enough anymore. The experiment hadn't broken us. It had revealed us, and what we saw wasn't simple. We were still partners, but the kind of love we needed now wasn't going to survive on habits and history. It had to be redefined. My friend sat next to me, close but not intruding, and reached for my hand. Her touch was quiet, steady. Across the room, her husband stood still, his expression unreadable. And in that moment, I saw it all clearly. This wasn't about sex. This wasn't about swapping. This was about being fully seen. And all four of us had been searching for that in our own way. We ended up talking long into the night. Real conversation. No games. No wine buzz. No deflection. The kind that strips you bare. We said things we hadn't said in years. We admitted things we were afraid to even think. And when the night finally wound down, we came to a quiet, mutual decision. We needed space. Not a breakup, not an explosion, just space. Time to think, to process, to breathe without the weight of each other's expectations. We didn't stay in that suite. We all left quietly, without dramatics. No dramatic exits, no final touches. Just the soft, uncertain closing of a chapter. A chapter we never meant to write, but one we couldn't erase now. The door closed behind us, and for the first time, none of us knew what came next. I stared at the message on my phone longer than I should have. I think we stopped the wrong story. Just one sentence, but it echoed with all the weight of everything unspoken. I didn't reply, not right away. Instead, I slipped on my jacket and walked. Blocks of silence, no direction, just motion. Letting the October air brush against my skin, letting the city's hum replace the noise in my head. I didn't know what that message meant, if it came from love, regret, or the same confusion that had tangled all of us up, but it was enough. Enough to crack the door I'd barely closed. And the truth? A part of me had never really shut it. Later that week, my husband and I sat at the kitchen table. No wine, no background music, no phones buzzing for attention. Just us. 2 mugs of coffee growing cold between long pauses and quiet glances. And then we talked. Really talked. Not about that night. Not about the message. Not about the what-ifs. About us. What we wanted. What we missed. What we were afraid to admit out loud. What we still hoped for. We didn't make promises. We made space. Space to grow without pressure. Space to come back together if it still made sense. I told him about the message. I didn't hide it, didn't sugarcoat it. And to my surprise, he didn't recoil. He just nodded slowly and said, "Yeah, I get it." Because whatever had shifted in me that night, that moment, that unraveling it had shifted something in him too. We stopped chasing the people we used to be. We started asking who we wanted to become now. As for the other couple, we all agreed to take a break. No fallout, no drama, just time. Because sometimes a connection isn't meant to last forever. Sometimes it's there to jolt you awake, to nudge you out of autopilot, to remind you that you're still a whole person under all the routines. And so, weeks passed, then months. Slowly, quietly, we built new rhythms. Not out of obligation or nostalgia, but out of curiosity. Out of a shared willingness to meet each other where we were now, not where we'd been. The spark didn't snap back like magic, but honesty did, and trust followed, and that was enough to keep moving forward. And that message, I So if you're here wondering what to do stuck in a relationship that feels numb or tempted by something unexpected, ask yourself this. Are you trying to escape, or are you trying to rediscover something worth keeping? Let me know in the comments, what would you have done? Would you answer that message, or let it fade into memory? And if you want to know what happens next, maybe the story isn't over yet.